Okay, now we're going to move on to moon phases also today. Okay, so if we were in class, these would be the notes that we would be taking. And so the very first one is when you have a new moon. And actually, when we have a new moon, we actually can't see anything in the sky. It looks completely dark because it is all in shadow. Okay, so when the part of the moon that we can see is based on where the sun is shining. Part of the moon is always in shadow, except when there's a full moon. The side that faces us, none of it is in shadow. In this case, the entire face of the moon that we can see from Earth is in shadow. And I don't have a black with me. Usually I do this in black, but I'll make do today. So a new moon reflects no light from the sun. So no light reflected. Okay. Then, since we're going from no light reflected, the next phase of the moon is going to have just a little sliver reflected, and the rest of it is in shadow. Okay, so that is called a waxing crescent. A crescent is this shape right here, the part that is light. It looks like what we call that little slice of a moon. And that is 1/4 reflects light. So 1/4 of the moon's surface that we can see from Earth reflects light. Okay. The next moon phase that you're going to see is going to be where we have half of the moon in shadow and half of the moon is in light, and that is called the first quarter. Even though it's a half, I'll explain that in a bit. 1/2 reflects light. Okay, that is called a first quarter because the lunar cycle is 28 days. And by the time we get to this phase, we are 1/4 of the way through that 28-day cycle. So it is not actually talking about what is reflected here that you can see versus what you can't see. It's talking about where we are in that 28-day cycle with moon phases. Okay, and last on this section is we're going to have now this little section is in a crescent and it's dark, and then all of the rest of this reflects light. So that would be a waxing gibbous. And that has 3/4 reflects light. Okay, this part of the lunar cycle is light is increasing here. So we started at the beginning of this with no light reflecting from the moon, with a new moon. Okay, and then as we continue to go, then 1/4 of the moon's face that we can see from Earth is visible to us, is reflecting sunlight, and that is called a waxing gibbous. From there, we go to a first quarter moon, which has half of the moon face in shadow and half is reflecting sunlight that we can see. And from there, waxing gibbous, which is about 3/4 of the moon face is reflecting sunlight and 1/4 of it is in shadow. Now, these are all referring to the term waxing because waxing tells you that the light is increasing. Okay, and now the next phase that we're going to have is a full moon, and that is when the entire face of the moon that we can see from Earth reflects light. So the whole side reflects light. All right, If that new moon was the beginning and this first quarter is 1/4 of the way through the lunar cycle, then this is 1/2 of the way through the lunar cycle. Okay, so all the way here we have been increasing light. We've gone from none to 1/4 to 1/2 to 3/4 to the entire face of the moon. So that means now we're going the other direction and we're going to start seeing the shadows increasing. So we're going to have over here that crescent again, but this time the crescent is going to be in shadow with 3/4 of this reflecting light. See the difference here? This is a waning gibbous. Okay, it's gibbous and not crescent because we're always referring to the part of the moon face that reflects light, as opposed to the part that is in shadow. So it's always about the light reflected. It's waning, meaning it is decreasing. And then we're referring to the part that reflects light. Okay, so that again, you have 3/4 reflects light, and light is decreasing now. Okay, the next phase is the last quarter. So this time, this side's going to be in shadow. One half reflects light. And last, I'm going to have this little bit of crescent showing light. And all of the rest of this is in shadow. Okay, and this is a waning crescent. 1/4 reflects light. And this part, all of these parts are light is decreasing. So this entire cycle takes about 28 days, and we start with the new moon where no light is reflected, then 1/4 of the moon reflects light, then half, then 3/4, then the entire face of the moon from our position on Earth. A full moon shows the whole side. Then we start to decrease. Then we have a waning gibbous, then a last quarter, which means half, and last a waning crescent. Okay, so if we were taking notes in our journals, this is what we would put in there. And you can use this to reference where you are. In fact, I'll take a picture of last year's notes that look better than these do and attach so that you can use them when you're trying to identify your sketches.